Hey folks, so in this video I'm going to go over some updates to the debug graph for GetSpectrumDataHelper and then go over this reference value slider to demystify that a little bit and show you how you can use it along with a multiplier to get like an output, a range of values that works for you, for whatever you're trying to visualize with audio. Okay, so I'm going to turn debug on, and then we get a little graph where there's actual values in an x and y axis. The y axis is going to be the output, the return value you get from the musical decibels array in GetSpectrumDataHelper, and then this will be the on the bottom, on the x-axis, the corresponding frequencies, and it's shown by the A of every octave in a piano. I'm using kind of classical piano notation. So A4, C4 is middle C, A4 is for 440 hertz. In other contexts that might be different. In Ableton Live, A3 is 440 hertz, not A4, and C3 is middle C. So just something to keep in mind. Okay, let's run this real quick. Okay, so far so good. If you turn on 2D in your scene view, then you can have the graph be really flush. It's a 3D element, and you can scale it. The graph will scale once I play again, but when we're paused, only the graph scales, but not the actual values don't update till you're playing. Okay, I'm gonna reset these values, and I'm gonna go to a 2D view. Okay, so now that I've shown that, let's show a few things about this reference value slider. I've got the script open here. I'm going to comment out the range for the reference value slider because we're going to set it to some slightly higher values to illustrate what's going on. Okay, I'm going to turn off interpolate samples because what interpolate samples does is it's if I set this kind of high, we'll see it's making values fall back to 0 slowly instead of at real time. And in the process of doing that, it's also sort of clamping negative values. There's a floor of 0, so any negative value basically remains at 0. So if I turn this off, we'll probably see some negative values. Yep. And that's to be expected. So in a lot of, if you read up online, voltage to decibel conversion, the people will say, and correctly, that reference value should be set to 1. So I'm going to set that. And when I do that, what we see is we've got this kind of like super negative to 0 range. And that's correct. 0 in its sort of digital world, decibels clip. We have 0 is considered clipping, so you shouldn't have values higher. If you have values higher than 0, they're getting clipped. So we've got this kind of negative to 0 range. But when we're visualizing something, maybe it's a shader parameter, maybe it's the scale of a prefab or whatever it may be, we're going to want a 0 to positive range, not negative to 0 range. So to kind of push these values up, we lower the reference value. So if I say 0.01, now we've got some positive values. And that's why the range is set to very, very small to 0.01. It's because when we start doing very small values, we lift this into the positive range. And we still end up with a lot of really noisy, crazy stuff. So that's why interpolating it and flooring it at 0 gives a nicer visual result. We've got this really high value here. Bring this back down. Yeah. So you can always turn off your interpolate samples to see maybe there's some stuff that's negative that you want to be visualized better, and you could still further lower your reference value. And if you lower it all the way to 0.0001, I think, 4 zeros. Let's bring our range back in. So with our range set, if we bring this all the way to the left, we'll get everything negative mostly, in most situations, back over 0. Okay. Now the other way you can use this is if we start raising our reference value back up, we're going to get some of our lower volume kind of frequencies that maybe are kind of visually noisy in a song and making it hard to perceive maybe something more melodic going on. What we can do is as we push our reference value up, we're kind of filtering out the lower volume stuff, and then we can push our multiplier up, and what that's going to do is it's going to accentuate positive values and push negative values even further down. So that's a way to kind of do a high pass in a sense. I find that a lot of times I just do 005 is what I've set the default to be. It often works well. It kind of keeps things that are too noisy looking out, but still allows a lot of visual data to come in. And I set this to 1, and I usually adjust the range and the other whatever audio visualizer I've got going on, and that's kind of how I do it. Okay, I think that covers everything I wanted to show. So thanks again for watching, and thanks for using this asset. Take care.